Shooting 40 Smith & Wesson today. STEYR S40-A1 HK VP40. A little bit of head-to-head right after this. Okay, I'm going to start out with the STEYR. I haven't shot the STEYR in quite a while. I've got 10 rounds loaded in a couple of magazines for each. Been a while since I've shot either one of these guns, but definitely longer for the STEYR. Let myself get used to this sight for a minute. I do remember that I like this trigger a lot. All right, let me see if I can hit the flapper. So far, so good. Okay, well, first 10, I'm liking it. Liking the way this thing's shooting today. But here's one of my favorites. I've showed you this one a couple times before. I'm showing it again, and I'm probably going to show it again in the future. The VP40. This is, of course, the slightly larger caliber version of the VP9, that insanely famous handgun from H&K. All right, breaking in a little bit. It is such a shooter. All right. Okay, jumping back over to the STEYR. This has those odd STEYR sights that are basically, you've got like this white pyramid out front, and you've got a hollow pyramid in the rear, sort of a triangle inside of a triangle kind of thing. It's a very interesting sight. And I know some people, like my friend Ryan Machad at Handgun Radio, absolutely love this sight. And some people don't like it at all. I can definitely see the benefit because it is nice. You know, like I said, I don't shoot this gun that often because I did have some malfunctions with it early on when I first tested it, did my first 100, my first review and second look at it and all that. But, you know, if it gets broken in and if those malfunctions were just a sort of a break-in issue, I can see why people really like STEYRs. It is a shooter, and that sight picture, it grows on you pretty quick. And then, of course, there is the VP40, which I like a whole bunch. I have a Talon rubber grip on both of these guns, by the way, because that is my preference. I think both of these guns might make me look halfway decent today. I like that. All right, in typical head-to-head fashion, let me put a few on paper just so we can see which one I might be shooting better, if any, on this particular day. So far, with a couple mags through each one, hitting the steel, I feel like I'm shooting them both well. They're both kind of in the groove with me today. So let's see if that continues on with a paper target. That target is 12 yards downrange. Basically, the nice thing about that tactical AR 500 target system is I can pop out the steel and put in paper real easy. All right, I'm going to start out with the STEYR. Going to the circle on, or the orange dot on the left. I think I'm just going to try and stick with a center hold. All right. Can't really tell. Looks okay. It looks like I'm up around the 10, 11 o'clock position, right? Okay, I think that's what I see from here. Okay. All right, so let's slide on over to the right. VP40. I'm going to also stick with a center hold. Okay, that looks like it's a little more centered group. Measurement wise, not sure what the two of them will look like, but it looks like the VP40 was putting them more at point of aim, point of impact. The STEYR, again, sort of off to the upper left a little bit, but maybe slightly higher. But looking at them from back here, I'm pretty happy with both of those groups. So here are a couple handguns chambered in 40 Smith & Wesson, one made in Austria, one made in Germany. Both of them a bit off the beaten path. So if you walked into the gun store these days and they had any kind of inventory, this actually is something you might see in the counter, because it is something that's a bit off the beaten path, and it's not going to be the things that people grab right away. So in the rare event that that might happen to you, and you look at them and you go, gee, maybe I should buy one of those. Well, here's some information for you. They're similar in a lot of ways, but they're different in a lot of ways, and it starts with the size. The VP40 is a more full-sized duty gun. The STEYR S40-A1 is a bit smaller. I initially compared the S40-A1 with the Glock 23, and that really is a good size comparison. They're very similar in that respect. I guess that would make the VP40 more of a Glock 22 sized gun, and that probably would be a more size appropriate comparison. But it was fun comparing these two. I actually had a much better time doing it than I might have initially thought. It was an enjoyable day shooting them both, and I had a good time shooting them both. I think I shot them both well. You can see all the specs here. I'm not going to spell each and every one of them out to you, but I'll point out some of the ones I think are the key differences between them. I really don't think that the barrel length or the overall length are very significant in their difference. Neither one of them are going to make a big difference in terms of sight radius or handling recoil, certainly not in terms of accuracy or any of those things. Really all it does is might make one a little more comfortable if you wanted to try and conceal carry it. The height is a little bit of a difference in that it's mostly in the grip, as height tends to be, and so with that near 5.5 inch height of the VP40, you do get a little more of a full-sized grip, although for my hands, being under 5 inches, the S40, I still get every bit of full grip on it. Grip angles are similar, but it's a little more pronounced, a little more severe with the S40. And with the S40, the thing that you really notice is that the grip tang is much more dramatic. The grip curves in drastically at the top underneath that grip tang, and that really cants your hand forward, and I think that makes a huge difference in how that gun and the shooter shooting it can manage the recoil. So I think what that does, in my opinion, is that makes the gun shoot bigger than it really is in terms of its recoil handling. The STEYR comes with two 10-round magazines. The VP40 came with three 13-round magazines, but the VP40 can be configured in 100 different ways, so take all that with a grain of salt. It really is a matter of which one you pick out, which SKU you pick out, or whichever one happens to be in stock at the gun shop. So I measured the trigger pull for each of these two guns. The STEYR pulls at 4 pounds 7.5 ounces, so that's just a hair under 4.5 pounds. The VP40 pulls at 5 pounds 2 ounces. Those are both good numbers. Those are both good trigger pulls, but that's a pretty significant, more than 1/2 pound difference. The other measurement and calculation that I did was just an opinion grip index, and that has to do with the linear distance between the front of the trigger shoe and the grip tang. So that's how far do you have to reach, but it also takes into consideration the width of the gun at that point, at that along that same line. And so the just an opinion grip index, and this has literally never happened ever before, is identical for these two. I mean, if I go out 3 or 4 more decimal places, you'll see a difference. But they are both 3.22 just an opinion grip index. And what's very interesting is that, again, we're back to that very dramatic cut-in at the grip tang that the STEYR has, and that, even though it's a wider pistol, that draws your hand in closer to the trigger. So it equals it out. So I found that pretty fascinating between the two. Of course, the HK has the European style paddle magazine release, which is by nature ambidextrous because it's on both sides of the trigger guard. I like it. I like it a lot. I almost wish more handguns would come that way. The other thing the VP40 has is those ears at the back of the slide, right behind the serrations. Those are intended to help you rack the slide, and they do work. I thought they were gimmicky when the VP9 first came out until I really tried it and spent a day at the range with it, and I thought they're actually practical. The STEYR actually has a locking mechanism where you can lock the fire control group and prevent the gun from being able to be fired while being stored. That's something that the VP40 doesn't have. In most other ways, they're very similar. VP40 has a larger, significantly larger trigger guard, so if you're wearing duty gloves or just cold in the wintertime and you're wearing gloves, much better chance that you're going to be able to get a trigger finger into the trigger guard. The sights are similar in design. They both have that sort of sloped Novak style rear sight, but of course the STEYR again has that very unique STEYR sight picture, that pyramid or triangle out front and that trapezoid rear sight that it fits down into when you take your sight picture. It is interesting. It can be a little odd when you first start shooting it, but I think once you get the hang of it, it's very intuitive. It's a pretty quick acquisition and it works. Now here's one huge difference. The STEYR, this particular model, the S40-A1, is discontinued, at least to the best of my knowledge. This is a discontinued model and they're not making them anymore. So there could still be some new old stock out there in various distributors or dealers' storerooms, so they could be found that way. But most likely, if you're going to find one of these, you're going to find it on the used market. Time will tell if STEYR reproduces either this model or one similar to it anytime in the future. Again, they're probably not going to be jumping over themselves to get another 40 caliber on the market, because right now 40 caliber guns just don't sell. So I did that target comparison. You remember the target comparison that I did? So the STEYR shot a better group, shot a tighter group than the HK did. I measured them, so I'll give you those numbers just for the heck of it. The group from the STEYR was 1.166 inches, so just over 1.1 inches. The VP40, 2.096 inches, so just a hair over 2 inches. This shooter on that day shot a better group with the STEYR. All right, finishing up at the range with this head-to-head between the STEYR and the VP, both in 40 caliber. Here are my final thoughts on the day. So number one, I haven't shot the STEYR, as I had said, in a really long time, and I'm very pleased that I really enjoyed shooting it today. I shot it well, I think, and it performed perfectly. And I don't think it has always performed perfectly, if I remember correctly. I'm finding the sights much more likable and practical than I had, I think, in the past. So I had a lot of fun with this STEYR today. So I'm glad I brought it out, glad I did this comparison. But of course, then there is the VP40. This is a gun that I am on record as really liking a lot. And when it comes to the guns that I have chambered in 40 Smith & Wesson, this is one of the first ones I'm going to reach for. There are some others. We'll talk about them down the road too a bit, but this is one of the first ones that I'll reach for when I'm talking about 40 Smith & Wesson. It's just, you know, if you know the HK VP9 and you're a fan of that, then you already know everything there is to know about this gun. It's got those incredible ergonomics. It's got, you know, the great European paddle mag release, which I really like. This one does not have night sights. It has glow in the dark sights. You know, if you charge them with ambient light, they'll glow for a while. I don't consider those night sights, and I also don't consider them useful in any way whatsoever. Because if you got to pull this out of the nightstand drawer at 2 a.m., guess what? It hasn't been charged with light, so it's not going to be of any use to you. So that's a downside. Of course, the STEYR also does not have night sights, period. You know, it's just a white pyramid and a white pyramid outline. So, but I don't know if you guys want me to pick a winner or not. Hard to say. So let me break it down a little bit. The VP9 is more enjoyable to shoot still. It's a little bit larger gun, so it's not a completely fair comparison. It's a little bit larger gun, but it's just got a little bit better ergonomics overall. It's a little bit more enjoyable to shoot. The STEYR, on the other hand, even though it was not as close to point of aim as the VP was, it made a much tighter group. So I put 10 rounds in a pretty small, tight space at 12 yards offhand, and that's pretty respectable. So I like that. So accuracy is definitely there for the STEYR, and it has its own ergonomic advantages. You know, the sight picture is what it is. You either like it or you don't. So I'm not trying to sell you on the sight picture or tell you not to like it. The trigger is very nice on this gun. So if you're a trigger diva, these are two probably fine examples of triggers. The grip is different. You've got an extremely deep grip tang right there for the web of your hand to get into, and a very low bore axis. This is almost CZ quality low bore axis as far as the way the slide sits down into this frame. So there's that, you know, and that helps it, even for its size, even though it's a slightly shorter barrel, slightly smaller gun, it helps it mitigate the recoil, I think, every bit as well. So there's that. At the end of the day, it always comes down to personal preferences. So I'm not going to try to sell you mine or tell you what yours should be. You know, hopefully I'm giving you some information and maybe some infotainment in a manner that will help you to pick between these two if these two are on your list or ever in the future. If you walk into the gun store during this firearm drought that we're in, and they happen to have these two in the counter, and you go, ooh, now I got to pick between them. Well, hopefully I've helped you a little bit, knowing a little bit about each one. So let's wrap it up. I'm going to put another magazine through each one of these guns. I'm going to call it a day, and it is a beautiful day here in mid-December, so I'm going to try and enjoy as much of it as I can. I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you guys are surviving the pandemic and all of the insanity around it. Hope you guys are doing good as far as work goes. I hope you're doing great as far as life goes. It's almost Christmas, so you're probably not going to see this video until January, even though it's right now the middle of December. But I hope everyone had wonderful holidays, and I hope people got things that they wanted, and most importantly, I hope people got things that they needed. So that's it. Enough yakking. A couple more magazines through these guns, and I'm out of here. I got stuff to do. I don't know, maybe I like the STEYR better today. I saved it for last.